very much, Alicia. So now we're on to our last session of the day. Thank you very much for sticking with us. I know some of you have been here for 2 full days, so I appreciate your endurance. We'll be joined by Hayden Clottey, Head of Sport at Alpha Talent Group. He will be moderating this session alongside Jasmine Johnson and Ewan Baggott, or EABskills as he's known on social media, and Gabriel Nussbaum. So these are all content creators that will be sharing their tips and tricks for success on social media. Please, can we give them a warm welcome?
Right, good afternoon everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So I'm Hayden. I am the head of sport at a creator agency called Alpha Talent Group. And to my left are 3 of our biggest and brightest content creators that are going to be discussing the future of video. So we'll do some introductions. Let's start with this gentleman to my left.
Cool. Hi guys, Ewan, or EABskills, known as online. Football freestyler, but recently I've also been creating a lot of wholesome content at football stadiums. So yeah, that's kind of where I am.
Hi, I'm Jasmine. My career started off as a mental health nurse, and my journey quickly took a turn when I joined the Netflix reality show Love is Blind, which gave me a platform on social media. So that's where I do lifestyle content, share some snippets regarding, my personal relationship, having conversations regarding mental health, and hopefully content that resonates with people. So, yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Gabriel Nussbaum, but I also sometimes go by the alias of That Money Guy. And as the name probably kind of gives away, I like to talk about money online. I'm a personal finance educator and content creator. I've been doing it for roughly 4 years or so on social media, and my objective is to kind of cover that one topic that most education systems forgot to cover, and yeah, using social media as that's where a lot of the attention is at the moment.
Great. So these guys have been really well placed to kind of explain how over the years video has changed from the way that we consume via television and now obviously on social media. So we'll crack on without further ado. So starting with you, Gabriel. So I'm someone who, well, spends money quicker than I can save it. So your videos are very, very useful to someone like me, but finance isn't something that's sort of typically considered to be exciting amongst the masses. You might disagree, but how do you sort of compel your audience or first-time viewers to kind of buy into what you're doing?
Yeah, finance isn't the easiest topic to discuss on social media, probably because more people would rather shy away from the topic than lean into it. But I kind of have this policy in my head, which is, if I've made a video about income tax go viral, then you can make a video about anything go viral, pretty much. There isn't a more boring topic than that. And I use a few different tactics, but I suppose one of them is about trying to evoke some kind of emotion in the concept, or, some kind of barrier or hurdle when watching the content. And the way that I do that, for example, going back to the income tax one, was instead of just trying to explain income tax, which most people would probably not want to watch as a video, I evoked the emotion that most people don't actually understand how it works in the first place, and I played that through some kind of skit. So that's kind of one way. You've got to think about, okay, you've got the topic, but there are hundreds, if not thousands of different ways you can actually address that topic in the first place. I think the second thing is to try and bring in some kind of shock factor. So you've got the emotion, that's one thing, but the shock, so when they come in, that beginning sentence, that opening sentence that you try and bring in as part of the storytelling process is the most important. So I could go, this is how income tax works. Or I can go, oh, you'll never guess how much I made on my salary this week. Do you see the difference? Straight away, someone's a bit more interested, a bit more entertained by that thing. And then I think the third thing is, with kind of like storytelling and an educational subject, you kind of want to bring the viewer on a journey, which is like, you don't give them the solution. Well, you don't want to lie to them, but you kind of want to drag them to the end. So if you kind of bring in a problem at the beginning, a problem statement is always brilliant and something like that. A story doesn't have to be like, the way that we think storytelling originally occurs in our head. It is kind of like you address something at the beginning and you solve it at the end. That is the simplest form of kind of storytelling, and that can be done in pretty much any educational sense. So if the end of the video is the final thing that they need to understand how income tax works again, and sorry for keep coming back to that really boring topic, that is a simple way to kind of take storytelling into an educational format.
Nailed it. Thank you, mate. Love
Pleasure.
that. Pretty good. Going on to you, Mr. EABskills.
Yes.
So, as we know, football is, sorry if there's any non-football fans, but it is the biggest sport on the planet, and it is one of the most entertaining. So how do you use video to replicate that sort of entertainment value in your content?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what Gabriel was saying. It's all about the storytelling. So, as you said, football is the biggest sport on the planet. I think some might argue, but it is the biggest football sport on the planet. But saying that, not everyone is interested, right? So how do I get people who might be semi-interested in football, or, you know, they might know David Beckham? How can I get those guys to watch my videos? Because, like I said, there's a lot of football fans, but there's still a finite number on social. So I went down the route very recently of trying to make more wholesome stuff that kind of, you know, can be watched by my nan. Or, you know, can be watched by someone who's not as interested in the hardcore football freestyle
And it's now
skills.
EABskills a fan.
She loves it, yeah. She's got notification, you know, bells on and everything. But so I try and go down the storytelling route, but from like a more general point of view. So it's not just about, you know, one specific element of football. It's like, how can, for example, I go to a football stadium and make a kid's dreams come true by taking them to the club shop if they win a challenge and, you know, buying them the latest kit. So it's, you know, it's still loosely based around football, but it doesn't mean, you know, you don't have to be following Match of the Day to understand it. So that's how I try and do it.
Lovely stuff. Jasmine, you've had quite a busy year, having transitioned from television reality star to now content creator. So can you sort of tell us what you sort of learned and retained from being on TV, and how you use that to engage with your community? Because these are people that followed every element of your life. So how are you keeping them engaged?
I think this past year has been a mixture of growth and change. And going onto the social media kind of space, it's been an exciting challenge. What I've learned from being on TV and going onto social media is people have seen a raw, unfiltered version of my private life, my family life, and my relationship. And I thought going into social media, because they're invested in my story, was to bring my story onto social media. But now the good thing is it's on my terms. So I can give them a mixture of my relationship, of my struggles with mental health, having open conversations about mental health. And I think bringing vulnerability and authenticity to your audience opens up conversations and allows them to be their true selves as well as you. So that's how you get kind of that rapport with your audience, kind of building a strong community, which is great.
Lovely. On the topic of community, so you, and I know you touched on it a little bit as well, we've obviously got TikTok, Instagram, Snap, YouTube, just to name a few. How do you go about deciding which piece of content lives on what platform? Like, what's the thought process behind that?
Yeah, there's not a one-size-fits-all. So what I like to do is I actually experiment across different platforms. So I'll make an edit of a certain concept for Snapchat, and if that performs well, then I instantly know, oh, there's got to be something in this that then will perform on the other channels. But I also use each one as a test. So if I want something to be the hero on Instagram, I'll test it across the other platforms first. And then, you know, I can kind of, because I've been doing this for so long, I can then instantly know, oh, I know exactly why that hasn't worked or that has worked. So then I might, you know, make that little section of the video even better for Instagram, or, you know, one of the platforms where I really want this video to do well, say if it's a collaboration with a brand, or, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a really interesting one, but also the fact that all those platforms are so different. So it's quite interesting because a lot of brands especially, let's say if they do an advertisement, they'll still maybe film something in 16:9 and then they'll just, you know, post it on TikTok. Versus you really have to think nowadays of, you know, how can I film that 16:9, you know, long form for YouTube, but then how can that be changed into those different platforms? Because it's not a one-size-fits-all. I don't know about you guys, but like it really isn't. For me personally, might be different, but it's quite an interesting one.
Is it different?
I fully agree. It's not a one-size-fits-all, but for the way that I create content, I'm a bit of a nerd, so I like efficiencies. So I could create multiple pieces of content for different channels, but I would rather create one incredible piece of content that has a shot on every single channel. Okay, it's optimized potentially for my TikTok and Instagram audience, which are my largest. But if it's a good piece of content, at the end of the day, it should resonate on different platforms. I'm aware, for example, that we've moved to a content like Snapchat, which you can now start posting short form content on as well. That audience will naturally be younger. If I move to a platform like LinkedIn, that audience aren't going to be so interested in all of the topics that I talk about. But, and I will stop coming back to income tax, I promise. But if I do a video and it explains income tax, I know that's going to work on LinkedIn because that's the right audience for that content. So I do pick and choose sometimes what goes on it, but when I create a piece of content, I create it just with the objective of being really good and it can work on every single platform, even though Ewan is right. It doesn't necessarily mean it will.
Ewan is right. That's going to be the main takeaway from this panel. There we go. Lovely stuff. Jasmine, coming back to you. So, having been on television, you've kind of opened up every element of your life to the audience. And obviously, as the show was on Netflix, you know, that's going to continue long after you've sort of finished your stint on there. But how do you sort of use Instagram and TikTok to continue to engage with your audience? So things like polls, stories, obviously, for those in the audience that might work for brands that want to tap into communities, what's the best practice that you found?
I feel like having a community that you interact with is so important because not only are you expecting them to engage in your content, you also have to engage with them. It works both ways, right? So I think what's really worked for me is engaging through comments, replying to comments. At the end of the day, they're real people and they want to be heard also. It's not one-sided. So interacting with comments, I really do make it a point to interact with my followers in the comments. I also reply to DMs. May seem like, you know, a bit of a long process, but they really do appreciate it. And these are the people that, it shows longevity, right? These are the people that will carry on following you, commenting, and it's the same people that you engage with that will show up on every post. And that brings a sense of community, to be completely honest with you. Polls, I feel like engaging with your audiences in regards to polls, they want to be making decisions in regards to just small things like, what do you think I should wear today? What lipstick do you think I should wear today? What shall I do? Where should we go for date night? Engaging with even the little things, they seem to engage a lot more on when they're making decisions. Yeah. So that's really important. And even asking them questions like, what would you like to see more of? You know, putting the ball on in their court, they really love.
Do you find there's usually kind of like one common answer? Does it vary?
It varies. It varies, to be completely honest with you. And what I like about my audience is they'll tell me exactly what they want to see. Like the other day, someone said, can you do a Q&A? Because, you know, you haven't done one in a while. And those little things, you're like, you know what? Fine, I'll do it. Because at the end of the day, this is the audience that is digesting your content. You want to give them what they want, right? Yeah. So that it's more entertaining for them.
I always find it interesting when, because I'm the exact same, I reply to every single comment, and I don't understand how people don't. Mm-hmm. But it goes back to this point, it's like, I get a lot of people saying, like, oh my God, you replied? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? We're just like normal people who just post something online. It's not that. So I find that crazy. So it must be something that a lot of creators don't do if you're getting those type of comments. So I just think that's like common courtesy anyway. If someone is taking the time to message you, then you're going to reply, right? Yeah.
And it does build a lovely sense of community because they connect with you more.
Yeah.
It's not just you uploading a post and that's it.
Yeah.
It's them getting to know you and you getting to know them. And it's kind of like a little family, you know, outside of the real world, but, you know, on social media, which is powerful.
I think tone of voice is really important as well. And I know you were mentioning it, Gabriel, about LinkedIn as a platform, which is maybe something that isn't that widely covered. And the way that people communicate on LinkedIn is obviously vastly different to how people might communicate on Snap, for example. But just kind of going on to your last point, how do you, just to expand on it, how do you sort of dictate which platforms are better suited to your content, and are there any emerging platforms that you maybe have seen that you think, okay, this could lend itself really well to financial advice, for example?
Yeah, so I'm going to pick back up on LinkedIn because I think that it's a platform that's being slept on by a lot of brands, creators, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if anyone's noticed or anyone's posted a video on that platform in recent months, but you have the opportunity to get more eyes on that platform than any other right now because that is something that they are pushing. And it's always good to not think of yourself as the guinea pig, but think of yourself as like kind of the thought leader in that area. So that's probably a really untapped area of I suppose, content creation in general right now. I put a video out the other day. I have about 3,000 or 4,000 followers on there. It has about 1.6 million views. So that's the kind of potential. It kind of feels like what TikTok felt like 3 or 4 years ago, where you had the potential to reach a lot of eyes and a lot of attention. Now, of course, some people might think, well, why would I post on LinkedIn in the first place? And I do agree, you have to have a bit more strategy there. I won't post all of my content on there. I'm not going to explain, I don't know, how to save as an 18-year-old on LinkedIn. But I will, say, the benefits of job hopping versus staying in a career for a long time from a monetary perspective, absolutely perfect.
So would you say you almost hold certain pieces of content back?
I wouldn't say I hold anything. I hold it back from LinkedIn, maybe, yeah. Just tactical, because it is a brand image at the end of the day, right? So I'm happy to kind of throw everything at every other platform, but that is the one where I will kind of cherry pick the ones that are suitable. But the other ones are made for media, right? So any media can kind of go. And I suppose I kind of lost that emotional attachment to views a long time ago. So I don't mind if I put a video on Instagram and it wasn't meant for Instagram, and Instagram very quickly tells you, we do not want this on our content because you're going to get 0 views on it. I'm cool with that.
I think from the LinkedIn perspective, though, I personally also use that as essentially my online CV. Yep. So, anything, really great collaborations I've done, whether that's like personally or with a brand, I'll kind of use that. And also, like, going forward, I want to look back at that stuff, in the future and be like, oh, let's look at my LinkedIn and that sort of stuff there. But also, I think the value, like, this type of conversation, I like to kind of have that on LinkedIn as well. Those little nuggets that you pick up from other creators and stuff like that, where, you do feel like you can create that value on LinkedIn. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
But I completely agree with Gabriel. It's a totally slept on platform. People think it's like, it's way bigger and you have to be so much more professional. And I think you do have to be. Just getting that content out there is the most important thing, so.
Going back to what you were saying, like detaching from the views, how did you get yourself into that mind space of?
Oh, I've had far too many videos that have flopped for me to allow it to affect me emotionally anymore, because I think the key to longevity on any social media platform is experimentation, and the price you have to pay for being willing to experiment is that some of your experiments are going to fail. And I think it's just from me having thrown enough things. Yes, overall, I know the things that will succeed, but if I still want to be creating content in 3, 4, 5, 6 years' time, if I am still creating the exact same piece of content that I am today, that won't be a case anymore. Like, the audience will get bored, they'll move on, it won't feel relevant. And I'm not saying you have to keep up with the trends or anything like that, but you just need to be testing new formats and making your content feel fresh every so often. So that's probably how I got used to it.
And to be fair, for anyone who is looking to create content, whether for brands or personally, there's a new feature on Instagram called Trials as well now, where you can trial certain specific pieces of content to people who don't follow you. So that will go straight out to people who aren't following you, and then it will basically tell you whether that's a decent piece of content for you to then share with your audience. So that's another interesting one.
Yeah, definitely a really good feature to look out for. Going back to a word that's been used a lot here, which is community. So, Jasmine, I'm going to go to you for this. How do you look at converting the sheer amount of views that you've accumulated on TikTok and Instagram, and look at how you can pivot that into in real life? So I think a big part of what content creators do is obviously fostering community, but you want to be able to actually interact with these people. Is that something that is on the horizon for you? And if so, like, how would you imagine doing that?
I definitely envision meetups. That's definitely something that I would want to do, just to have real honest conversations about mental health, relationships, daily life, and, being my authentic true self and then being able to do the same. I'm currently working on a mental health project at the moment called We Beyond. So it focuses on adolescents and social media and their relationship with social media, how to make it, a healthier relationship. And I feel like relationships on social media is great, but face-to-face is a lot stronger and more powerful. So kind of jumping on to, charity work and doing things that matter and having that face-to-face engagement is really important because, it's to give other people a voice, and doing that in person is really powerful. So, yeah.
I think community is the buzzword, I think, it will be the buzzword for 2025. You're seeing more and more brands and creators push towards that in-person individual experience. And I think that you're seeing incredible results. I mean, I don't know if anyone's just seen the absolute blow up of run clubs recently. These things have 30, 40, 50 people, and some of them, okay, 100, 200, but they're getting some of the biggest brands in the world to participate with those communities. And I think that that's just a strength that you're going to see moving forward into 2025, that in-person reality, you know, because maybe after COVID lockdown and social media, people actually want human experience.
Really good shout. Yeah, I've seen so many run clubs, it's ridiculous.
Have you done one?
Yeah, been to a few. So, okay, Gabriel, going back, so let's look at some of the maybe perceived negatives of social media. So how do you, looking at your audience and community, how do you channel negative audience feedback and turn it into something positive? So if someone's given you feedback on a video, how do you look at that and go, okay, let me take this on board and see how I can make a better video, for example?
Yeah, so there's two types of negative feedback I can get. One are personal attacks on me, which I just laugh at and ignore, because if someone's willing to type that on the internet, there's probably something worse going on their side of the camera than on my side of the phone, or whatever the saying is. But then there is the actual feedback sometimes I get about my videos. The worst case scenario could literally be, you've said something about finance, which is factually wrong. That is probably the worst case scenario. And I can do two things. I can go, I need to delete my profile. This is the worst thing ever. I'm going to get shut down by the FCA. Or I can apologise, explain the correction in the comments, and use that information to just be better with my content moving forward and create another piece of content. So I think if you just literally utilise it to generate your next piece of content, that is the best way to harness negativity, because negativity at the end of the day is just an attention that's telling you to do better. And you can either kind of go into your shell or use it to kind of jump onto the next step.
Lovely stuff. I've just been told we've been chatting for a little bit too long, so we're just about out of time, but thank you for that, guys. I really appreciate it, and hopefully you guys in the audience really enjoyed it as well. So thank you very much, everyone.
That was awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you do like what we've been speaking about today, please come along to our events like the Future of Brands, Future of Audio and Entertainment, which is coming up at the end of April, 29th of April. I hope I've got the date right. It'd be great to hear what you thought. Let us know. We're going to be stood out at the back at the end. Would love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, and what you loved, what you didn't like so much. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to see you at one of our conferences very, very soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.